Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Welcome to another episode of the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for this episode. This week, I have two guests on, but they run one Etsy shop. My guests are Colette and Ceanne, and they run the Etsy shop Ever Blooming Originals. Colette and Ceanne, thank you so much for being my guests, and welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Yes, and so I have two of you, and that's not unusual, but before we jump into it, can you tell us who each of you are and what role you play in Ever Blooming Originals?
My name is Colette, and I am the mother of the two of us. And I started the Etsy shop in 2011, and my daughter recently joined me about a year ago to help me run the shop.
Yeah, that's me. I'm Ceanne. And like my mom said, I've been here for about a year, and I've been helping with a lot of different stuff with the shop. Like I do a lot of social media. I help with inventory. I help with our standalone shop as well.
And Colette and Ceanne, I want to say, first of all, congratulations. You have hit over 28,000 sales in the years that you've been selling on Etsy. And I know that's no small thing. So congratulations on that. And how hard or how easy, and I don't even want to ask how easy, because I know so much work must have gone into it. How hard was it to hit your stride on Etsy and know that this is going to work?
Well, when I started in 2011, I had no idea what it would sort of turn into as the years passed. I originally started the store as sort of a way to keep busy while I was unemployed and looking for a job. And from that point, just starting out, just sort of tinkering with it, it's really grown organically over the past, 9 years now?
Yeah.
And I'd say in the beginning, I didn't really have any idea of how it would turn out for me now. I never would have imagined that I would have 28,000 sales. So it's been a great ride. It's been a ton of work, but I wouldn't really change anything. It's been a fantastic experience.
And did you eventually work yourself out of unemployment, and did this become your main thing?
Well, originally, yes, I said I was doing it sort of to keep busy. And then at some point, when I realized that this had the potential to really be a full-time career for me, it was then I decided I wasn't going to look for an outside job. I was just going to focus on this full-time, which is what I've done. But I'd say that realization didn't come for quite a while. Maybe, I think it took me probably 2 years to feel like I could really make a go of it.
Wow. So you were more cautious.
Yes, I've been involved in retail my whole life. I've been in retailing since I've been 16, and I know how difficult it can be. And so I didn't come into it thinking, gee, I'm going to be really successful at this. I was much more skeptical and cautious because I had so much background in retailing, and I know how tough it can be.
And before we go much further, can you tell us what it is you make and sell on Etsy?
We specialize in handmade door decor, and we really try to focus on unique items that you wouldn't be able to find in a ton of other shops. So we really specialize in coming up with things that are unique and that our customers respond to because they want to have something that's not the run-of-the-mill item that they might see on all their neighbors' doors.
Yeah, I've had that problem where I bought a wreath and I thought nobody else is going to have this. And as I'm driving down the road, one of my neighbors had it. And I thought, great.
Well, that's what we try to do. We try to keep innovating and coming up with new ideas and unique items that customers respond to.
Yeah. And how did you initially discover Etsy as a sales platform?
Initially, I discovered it. I had, as I said, I had been involved in retailing, and I worked for a major catalog. And one of the women that I worked for that was a buyer at that catalog mentioned to me that her daughter-in-law had started a shop on Etsy and was having pretty good success with it. And I had never heard of Etsy. And so she mentioned it to me on a phone call, and we hung up, and I pulled up Etsy and I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna try this. And so I put a few things up really on a whim to see what would happen. And sure enough, shortly after putting a few items up, I started to have sales pretty quickly after I put the items up for sale on Etsy.
And were you always making the door hangings and wreaths from day one, or did you start off selling other items?
I started out selling door wreaths from day one and have stayed the course with that.
Wow. Do you think that the early success that you found on Etsy was a function of the uniqueness of what you were selling on the platform, or do you think the marketplace was just different back then and it was easier to make sales?
Okay. Yes, I do think that it was a function of when I started. I think if I started today, it would be much more difficult for me to get traction. Back then, there wasn't nearly as much competition. And so I think by definition, it made it a lot easier to get started. But I do think that, even still back then, there was competition. So I did have the right type of product that spoke to people, and it really helped fuel my success. But I know now when I look, I do feel as though if I had to start again today, it would be much harder for me to get the traction that I got in the beginning.
Yeah. And having been on the platform for a while, do you feel that the maturity of your shop helps to maintain the traction that you've gained?
Definitely. I think when people see that I have 28,000 sales, and I think right now we have over 6,000 reviews, people look at that and they have confidence. And I think that's one of the things that is important for me when I talk about my shop. I'm very proud to stand behind every sale. And so if there are any issues, no matter what they might be, I'm open to work with the customer to resolve everything. And I think when people look at the reviews, they can buy with confidence because they know if it doesn't work out, they're not going to be stuck. I'm not one of those people that's unreasonable and it's, you buy it, final sale. I never do that. I want my customers to be happy. And so, that's a great piece of advice if you're starting out, is that you really should work with your customers to be sure at the end of the day that they're happy.
Yes, I agree. I was recently, just yesterday, actually listening to a podcast where they were talking about markers for retail success. And one of the things they mentioned that's so crucial right now is customer reviews. Because people will see your products and like them, but then everybody wants to know what people who've worked with you before have to say, because that will impact the type of experience they believe they'll have with you. And so to see, over 6,000 reviews and, sometimes if I'm really bored, I will peruse every review, and not just Etsy, but like Amazon, wherever I'm shopping, just because especially if I'm going to spend a significant amount, I kind of like to know what everyone is saying, good and bad, because sometimes you get more information from the not so positive experiences because you get to see how it was handled. And still that instills confidence too.
Yeah, when I buy anywhere, I'm always looking at the lower reviews to see what those people have to say. And I feel like because Etsy gives you the opportunity to respond, it really helps you showcase your customer service.
Yes.
And I feel like even then that sometimes that stands out more, a 1-star review with a great response, from the shop owner explaining what happened and offering to make it right stands out more than just a 5-star review that's like, oh, it was great,
Yes, exactly. I agree. I will sometimes filter. You can't do this on Etsy yet, but like on Amazon, you can filter by stars.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to look at the 3 and below because then you really get a good idea about who the seller is and how they function.
Yeah, I do the same thing on Amazon.
So can we talk about managing your time? So Ever Blooming Originals is run by both of you. How do you divide up the tasks that need to be done, and how do each of you manage the time that you spend running the shop?
That's a good question. Ceanne has only been working here a year, and up until that time, I had been managing it all on my own. Mm-hmm. And it's been like very difficult and consumed a lot of my time. But we are right now sort of working through how we're going to work together and divvying up our sort of tasks that we have. So right now, the way that we're handling it is it's still a work in progress, but we generally have a formalized meeting on Friday mornings where we talk about the things for the upcoming week that we want to address and tackle. And then we usually at that meeting come up with a list for Ceanne to work on and a list for me to work on. And that we've been doing that now for just not too long. But so far that seems to be working for us. I feel as though we function better when we can work independently, when we have tasks to do, and then come back and review what each of us have done. And that seems to be working really well. As far as the day-to-day time management, I could still use a lot of help with that. It's very difficult when we are so busy. A lot of days we're so busy processing orders that really we come in and the entire day we are just making and packing, and there's not a lot of extra time to do anything else. And we're hoping at some point to get the process streamlined a little bit so that we can become more productive. But it's a real work in progress. We're struggling every day to just keep up with the demand that we have in the shop.
We do. We also have 5 employees, so they're making a lot of the orders too. But Mom and I focus more on the, the broad stuff.
Yeah.
At least, but sometimes it's so busy that we're making stuff there too.
Yeah. So I like that because you're scaling, or it sounds like you're in the process of scaling. How did you determine when to start bringing on additional help, and how do you ensure that you maintain the quality of your products?
Well, when it first started, I was literally making everything myself, doing all the photography. I was doing everything, packing, shipping. And at some point after I started, I felt like I couldn't keep up with the demand. And what I started doing was hiring high school students and college students to come in after they finished school, and they would work for a few hours and help me package up the orders. And that worked pretty well for the first few years. And then the demand continued to grow. And at that time, I decided I needed to hire some additional people to help with production. And so right now, I think we have about 5 people that come in, and we have one person that works on packing and shipping, and then most of the other people work on production. And what I do is at the end of the day, or as they're making the items, I will go through each item and make sure that I'm touching each item, looking at it, making sure it looks as though, we want it to look similar to the picture, and tweaking anything that might need to be changed before it gets shipped out. So literally, I check every single piece before it leaves. Nothing gets shipped without me actually looking at it. And I think that's really important, because I want my customers to open that package and I want them to feel excited about it, and I want to be proud of what I send out. So, and I'm going to continue to do all the quality control, because I feel like that is part of the key to my success, is that I am still hands-on day in and day out.
Yes. I like that. And did you, when you were hiring, look for people that already had an artistic skill in wreath making, or were you able to train were you looking more for a type of worker that you could work with and teach?
I think it's twofold, really. It's there are some people that, yes, it would be great if they had artistic ability, but I've hired one woman I hired. She has 4 boys, and she came and she said, I have no crafting skills. I've never tied a bow. With 4 boys, she just was not into that. And I said, it doesn't matter. As long as you have someone that has a willingness to want to learn, we can train anybody to do anything. She still works for me to this day. She's a great bow tire. She can hang with the rest of the people that are a little more artistic. But I've had my kids work for me. I've had college students, high school students. I've had people that do have artistic ability. Certainly it's nice to have people that might have more of crafting skills, but it's really anybody that has a positive attitude and has a willingness to learn. So we're open to hiring anybody to help out.
Yeah. And as far as the designs go, how much time or how often are you spending time coming up with new designs to create?
I wish that I had more time to do that, because that's really what I'm really passionate about. But at the current time, I sound like a broken record, but at the current time, it's really, we just come in and how many orders do we have to get out today? How many do we have to make? Yeah. What supplies do we need to order? And I think one of the things when I hired Ceanne was that I hope to be able to have more time to do that, to create and innovate and come up with ideas. Yeah. But I haven't really gotten there yet, because we're just too busy right now. So it's on my to-do list. I would love to be working 6 months out. So now theoretically I'd be working on things that I want to introduce in the fall. Mm-hmm. But we just haven't gotten there yet. We're just still struggling with keeping up with demand.
Colette, you can't see me right now, but I'm smiling because I'm thinking in my head, I know there's somebody who's listening to this and saying to themselves, I really want that problem.
I know, and it sounds like a crazy problem to have, but it really is. That's the reality of what it is here. But I started out just like everybody. The sales trickled in. It didn't happen overnight. This is 9 years of a lot of hard work. Mm-hmm. So, but it is possible.
Yes. And thank you for saying that it's 9 years of hard work. And what I like is that it doesn't sound like it's getting any easier, but you're still enjoying what you're doing and you're in it for the long haul. And I think a lot of times, especially in online retail, some of us give up too easily because things don't happen as quickly as, a page loads onto, the internet. And in reality, retail sales, whether they're online or off, I think this is more the nature of them. It's hard work and a long road.
It definitely is. And I do see a lot of people that start out and they are very discouraged. But, I think about 9 years, it doesn't seem like 9 years, but then when I look back on all that we've accomplished, we have come a really long way. But, it's a long, long road to get to where I am. And it didn't, it happened slowly. So
yeah.
Those people just need to believe in themselves and their product. And hopefully if they can hang in there, they'll have success.
Yes. And Ceanne, at this point, I'd like to pull you into the conversation because you handle more of the social media and the e-commerce website. So can we talk about that? What's on your plate when it comes to promoting the shop and doing other things outside of the creating and getting products to the customers?
Yeah, so historically, I'd say most of our sales are just coming from Etsy search. Mm-hmm. People just going straight onto Etsy and looking for a wreath, and then we come up. We have also, I know my mom has done a lot of the Etsy advertisements. And so my role as I come in is I've really been trying to work on our off Etsy site powered by Shopify, and trying to really come up with, making sure that our brand is really out there and that people know who we are and not just I bought it on Etsy, but I bought it from Ever Blooming Originals.
Yes.
And so most of our success so far has been in Etsy. So it's really, it's a bit of a struggle, to be honest, to try to, put more of our efforts into Shopify. But I feel like that's the future of the business, is to, really make it known as who we are and not just we're on Etsy.
Yes.
And then I've also been working a lot on our social media. And like, for example, on Instagram, I'm really trying to curate a feed that people are going to want to follow rather than just, here's a product, buy this. And, we've been pushing our customers to post photos of their products on social media with the hashtag Ever Blooming Originals, so that we can then use that as content for our feeds and our social media.
I like that. So there's so much I want to talk to you about based on all what you said. And one of the things that you threw in there, which I don't want to gloss over, is that it's hard to establish your identity off Etsy because, it's been 9 years and I assume people, for the most part, very easily say, oh, I got it from Etsy. But less often will say, I got it from Ever Blooming Originals on Etsy. Mm-hmm. So with your e-commerce store, and for anyone who wants to go and check it out, it's everbloomingoriginals.com. When you set it up, and I'm sure along the way you've learned that there's a lot that goes into building a brand online independently of Etsy. What have you done and what type of work has gone into trying to build the Ever Blooming Originals brand? Let's start with Shopify. I like that there's cohesion between your Etsy shop and the website. So if somebody does go there, there's that confidence that, okay, it's the same person, it's the same people. But how hard has it been to create an e-commerce shop and funnel traffic over there?
Pretty hard. I love that kind of stuff though. Ever since I was a kid, I was always into coding and, I used to play on Neopets and MySpace and, spend hours using HTML and CSS. So, I'm really passionate about that. And that's what I love to do. But it's definitely, sometimes I feel like guilt when I focus on, you know, our own shop when the vast majority of our sales have been on Etsy. But it's really, I'm just trying to go little by little and really slowly grow it. And so I've been trying to make it, you know, add features that we can't necessarily have on Etsy. Like, you can add a lot more different options, whereas Etsy only lets you have 2 drop downs. We have, you know, I recently just added rollover images so that when your mouse scrolls on top of a picture of a wreath, it'll show the second picture of the listing. So usually like a close up of the image. So I've really been trying to utilize Shopify in ways that we can't necessarily use on Etsy.
Okay. And as far as search engine discoverability, are you doing some blogging on the Shopify site as well to pull in people from the internet who might be doing searches related to your products?
Yeah. So I think the most recent blog post we did, my husband and I, we like DIY'd a little farmhouse coffee table. And so I showed all the steps of how to make it. And then at the end, I used, we sell a little centerpiece. And so I put that on the middle of the coffee table, and that was like my final photo. And so I made a little Pinterest image that was like a before and after. It was, we used an IKEA coffee table, and then we DIY'd it to make it our own. And so I showed the before and after with the little centerpiece on there, to try to just pull in a little bit of Ever Blooming Originals. And then if someone finds that image on Pinterest, they can see the whole, you know, the whole DIY coffee table, and maybe they'll even see the little centerpiece and be like, oh, I want to buy that. I'm already on the website. I definitely want to be doing more blogging. I recently DIY'd my front, my porch has some side lights, and I added some frosted vinyl in like a cute little pattern, and I plan to post that on the blog. But I'm not blogging as much as I want to, but hopefully we'll get there.
Yeah. And so I noticed also that you have a newsletter. What content do you share with subscribers?
So we usually if we ever do a blog post, we include that in there. We also include updates about the shop. So, you know, when I joined the team, we did like a little email welcoming me to the team, I suppose. And I bring my son to work with me. He's about a year old. And so I included him in the newsletter with a little picture of him holding a wreath and trying to make it something kind of engaging that people would want to read rather than, like I said, on the social media, just something like buy this, buy that, new product, buy this. Yeah.
And you mentioned user-generated content, primarily on Instagram. Have you been able to get traction on that? Are customers, have you found that they are happy to send in their pictures, or do you have to encourage them a little bit more to share?
They definitely need some encouraging. We have a little postcard in all of our packages that has information about how to unpack your product, and then on the back there's one that has our social media information, and we each month we offer a free wreath. Right now it's a special promotion we're doing where we offer a free wreath to one of the people that posts on Instagram using the hashtag #EverBloomingOriginals. So that's definitely helped to get some more user-generated content. I really love getting the pictures in from customers. I think it's also helpful because with a wreath, it's a big product, and we only have so many doors in the house and so many doors that we can prop up and take photos of. So having a real life photo from a customer is really helpful to be able to give our feed, you know, some different content instead of just the same door with the same kind of setup.
Yes. And with regard to social media, Instagram does seem like the perfect platform for your business, your products. Do you dabble on any other platforms?
Yeah, we post on Pinterest as well, and we've got Facebook. I'm really trying to build up Instagram because I feel like that has a lot of potential.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've been posting on other places as well. We also have a Twitter, but we don't really use it too much.
Okay.
We've had good success though or I haven't on Facebook. We have quite a few followers, and when we introduce new products, we do get traffic that way. But I hadn't until Ceanne came on. I hadn't really been involved in the Instagram, so she's really trying to build that up.
Yeah.
But Facebook has been pretty good. Up, I would say in the early days. But I think Cianne's right. We're starting to see more of a shift over to Instagram.
Yeah. I I don't know. I feel like for visual, which, Etsy is a lot of visual products.
Right.
Instagram is where people are going to look. Not that they don't look anywhere else by any means, but yes, that scrolling, it just it's what people
Right.
do.
Yeah.
It's true.
Um, so do you also sell internationally, and have you from day one?
Uh, in the early days, I did experiment shipping internationally. Honestly, right now, we are at peak capacity just handling the orders in the
Mhm.
United States. It's a little bit trickier shipping to internationally. And for right now, I'm just going to stick with the United States just because, as I said, we really can't handle too much more volume anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so I think maybe over the course of the last few years, if people private message me, I have sent to Australia and plenty to Canada. If I get a private message and someone is really desperate that they have to have it, I will do it, but it's not something that I advertise on Etsy.
Okay. And speaking of advertising and getting exposure, one of the things I want to talk about is that you've been featured in some big name publications, and not any, small ones to sneeze at. You've been featured in Good Housekeeping, House Beautiful, Southern Living, and Pop Sugar. How did that all come about?
Um, it kind of just came about, and we honestly didn't notice most of them until
What?
I started Googling ever blooming originals when I started working here, and I was like, "Oh, Mom, did you know we've been featuring Good Housekeeping?" And she's like, "Oh, we are." Um, and then it was really just kind of like a scavenger hunt. Like I remember I was like, "Oh, like I wonder if Southern Living's ever featured us." And I start Googling and Googling and Googling, and then I finally found something where they'd featured us, and I was like, "Oh, great!" So yeah, it's kind of funny that it just, I guess they're so big they don't even bother to mention.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really fun when you search and find something like that.
That just makes me sound like the biggest idiot, though, that I didn't even know. But it's true. I don't have a lot of spare time to Google myself or company. So no, I never had done that. But yeah, and I think that's been great exposure for us, even though I didn't know about it. But
I really like the stats feature in Etsy where you can see where your referrals are coming from. So
Yes.
we can see, what bloggers have featured us and which ones are still getting us traffic. And I think that's how I found a couple of those. I also use Google Analytics
Mhm.
because that will let you see exactly what page you were featured on. So sometimes on Etsy, it'll say we were, on Pop Sugar, and I start looking around and I can't find anything. And then if I go on Google Analytics, it'll let you see exactly what page you were featured on. So you don't need to go digging through their whole website.
Yeah. And when they feature you, are they doing write-ups about your business, or are they featuring specific products?
It's always a specific product so far. So usually typically it's around a specific season. So they'll do,
Okay.
they'll highlight a lot of different Easter wreaths, and they included one of our bunny wreaths, or they'll highlight different fall and Halloween wreaths, and they featured our ghost wreaths. So they're always posting about specific products.
Okay. And you haven't ever like reached out to them to communicate in any way, have you?
No.
Mm-mm.
I've thought about it, but I'm just too busy.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm here for. So it's not out of the question.
But I have thought about it. At one time, I was thinking wanted to set up like a little press kit to send to people, and it just never materialized.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Ceanne?
Put that on my to-do list.
Yes. Yeah, because that would be so great. I mean, the fact that you're already catching their eye, not even trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. That's
And I'm thinking giveaways, you know, their readers probably would love to receive one of those, and to partner with a brand like that, especially on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That would be something.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it.
So what is, and this is a question for both of you, Colette and Ceanne, because I know you both have different angles on running this business. What is a lesson or something you've learned along the way that you can share to make the road a bit easier for somebody else?
I think for me, the biggest lesson that I've taken away from all of it is that in order to be successful, you have to make yourself a bit different than everybody else. If you do what everybody else is doing, if you make what everybody else is making, you're never going to stand out. You're never going to be the one that gets noticed. You're just going to blend back in the crowd. Yeah. So if I have any advice for any Etsy sellers or people that are just starting out, it's really, don't look at what everybody else is doing. You want to innovate and think about what makes your business unique and why should someone buy from you, and that you're giving them something that they wouldn't be able to get anywhere else. That would really be my biggest piece of advice for anybody looking to start a new business.
Okay.
For me, I would say that when Etsy makes a change, that it's best to just, get behind them and understand that Etsy's a business and they want their sellers in general to succeed. And so if they, make a new change to advertising or whatever, instead of getting down on yourself and thinking that the sky is falling, to just be like, okay, Etsy knows what they're doing. They run this whole website. They have dozens and dozens of people dedicated to figuring out what sort of changes their platform needs to make it be more successful. So, if they think this is right, then, it's probably right. And instead of just getting, down on yourself and, succumbing to the whole frenzy, just, start figuring out what you're going to do to overcome it. Are you going to change prices? Are you going to, start working up your social media? Make a list of what exactly it is that you can do to make this work for you.
Ceanne, it's almost as if you're reading the notes I'm making as we're talking, because right after you finished, I was going to ask how you as a team deal with all the changes, and you just addressed that so eloquently. So thank you, because you're so right there, the pandemonium and fear. And I think it's so encouraging to hear how stable, sellers who've been around for a while and are stable and making their living on Etsy are responding to it. And a lot of that doesn't rise above a lot of the noise that we hear when these changes happen. And I always have to put this in there. I'm not paid by Etsy. I don't do this for Etsy. I get nothing. I just think it's wise sometimes to just take a step back and really assess how you can move along, adjust to the changes that they make. I don't think they make changes to fail. So
yeah.
No. And I think that's another key. That's what's really worked too, is that I think initially in the beginning, I would get freaked out just like a million other people. And every time they change something, I would get frustrated and upset. And we don't do that anymore. We just really, we look at what they have to say and we figure out, like Ceanne said, how we're going to adjust. But overall, Etsy really has changed my life. It's changed the life of my family. And I can't even put into words how grateful I am to have the platform. So we are, on Etsy's team, and we're rolling with the punches, and whatever they roll out, we're going to try to continue to support that. And yes, there may be things we don't agree with, and we might voice our opinion, but we're still going to get behind the direction that they're going in.
Yes. And I like that. And I feel the same way. It's perfectly okay to voice your opinion. You have one. We all have one, whether we agree or not. But anyway, thank you. You said it much better than I can.
Oh, I don't know about that. But...
What's one thing about selling on Etsy that's really that you really like? And alternatively, are there any features, or is there any one feature that you would like to see implemented on the platform?
I think for me, I had always grown up wanting to have a store. It was always a dream of mine to have a retail store. And that is a huge commitment, just to be open a certain number of hours and have employees. And it's just a gigantic commitment with a lease. And I think it's just wonderful that I can run this great business, and I am looking at my house right now from my workshop, and I am in my pajamas, and I can do this here. Yes. And I can have a job for my daughter, and I get to see my grandson every day. So for me, it's the fact that I can live out this dream that I've always had, and not have the constraints of a brick and mortar and all that goes with that. So that's what I think is fantastic. I'll let Ceanne speak to the other part about what she...
I think Etsy's, like, the great part about Etsy is that it's a marketplace, and so people are coming there to buy something, and so it's got a built-in, search function, and so a lot of times we'll list something and we don't put too much like advertising in there. We don't, we just recently listed an item and we posted about it once on Facebook, and then within, like, I want to say it was a week, maybe a week and a half, it had become a bestseller on Etsy. Wow. So I'd say really that just the ability to have organic search, and I think also that people on Etsy know they're buying handmade, and I think that that's something that sets it apart from other marketplaces. And I think that it's really just, it's made everything so much easier. I'm sure that if we tried to make a standalone shop from the beginning, it would have been nowhere near as successful as it has been on Etsy.
She wanted to know what we would like to see Etsy do.
That's both. No, I like that too. But yes.
I didn't want to answer that question.
Well, I am not in the business of biting the hand that feeds me.
Okay,
so
good job.
I'm just going to say that, we love Etsy for everything that they've done for us. And, if they want to make some changes, they can make changes. But
I think, I think overall some of the frustration sometimes we have, like our functionality with the drop downs and the variations.
We want more drop downs for sure.
Yeah. I think that would be variations and drop downs. If somebody was asking, if somebody at Etsy wanted my opinion, that would be
Etsy, if you're listening, give us a third, maybe a drop down.
Right.
Yes, I know that's a good ask, because I'm sure you're not the only ones. So
no, I know there's tons of us out there.
I'll be impressed if they're listening, but if they are, I hope they take that.
You never know.
Are there any tools or resources that you use to run your business that you found particularly helpful and you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, we use ShipStation, and we absolutely love that. We can automatically see the different carriers that we can ship through and see. Usually we use USPS, but sometimes if we've got a bigger package, it might be less expensive to go through UPS. We can also personalize our packing slips. We've added our branding on there and our logo, and we made it pink and green like our colors. And
that's nice.
did our in there, and it's that's really helped with the branding aspect to try to set us apart and, make sure people know they're buying from Ever Blooming Originals and not just Etsy.
Yeah.
We've also, the other thing that we like about ShipStation is that it'll let you put, you can put like locations into it, meaning that we've got a workshop and then we've got 2 sheds to store all of our materials. And so with 5 employees, it's a lot of, where is this? I don't know where this is. In shed number 1 or shed number 2 or in the workshop, which shelf? So with ShipStation, we can go through and we can say that this is on shelf E in the workshop in spot number 2. And then the employee can then see that and then go and know exactly where it is. So that's really helped to cut time down and reduce, employees being confused.
Yes.
We use eRank for SEO and to see how our shop is comparing to other sellers. And then we also use Airtable, which is something that we've recently started using to make sure that we're getting the margins we want and making the profit we need on our products. So we've gone through and imported all of our materials and created little recipes that automatically will show you how much an item costs. And then basically Airtable is kind of like Excel, but like times 10. Yeah.
Really?
It's a lot of like customization. You might have to do a little coding to get it to do what you want. But we've also used that to, so like I said, we have all of our materials in there. And what I do is I'll print out labels that will show, a picture of the material, and then I can put it into a little slot on the shelf so that people can see what's supposed to be there, so that if we run out of something, we know what was supposed to be in its place.
Okay.
There's just a lot of customization that Airtable lets you do.
Tell them a little more about the recipe thing, because I think that would be interesting to people.
Yeah, we researched trying to find a standalone website that would help us to figure out our pricing, because in the past, a lot of times when we price an item, it's just been like, how much do I think someone would pay for this? And just picking a number. So with Airtable, we weren't able to find a website that did exactly what it was we wanted. We found one that got close, but we were still running into issues with it. And it was kind of difficult to import all the information. So then we found Airtable, and we had, I think we hired someone to help us set it up at first. And then I ended up taking it over once I kind of figured out how it works. So yeah, we've got this whole, it's like different tabs that on the materials tab, I'll import all of our materials, how much it costs, and say, there's 360 inches of ribbon in one roll. One roll costs X amount of dollars. And then I go into another tab where I import, we're using 48 inches of ribbon and, this material and that material. And then it'll spit out a number and tell me how much it costs us to make. And then, and I also include the time it takes to make it in there, as well as our overhead costs.
Oh, wow.
It's not really something you can probably just download and start doing this. There is a lot of setup work, but once you learn how to use it, it's become really, really helpful for us. And then, we can set a multiplier and say we want to make X times as much as let's make, and then it'll spit out a number, and then we have a better idea of what we should be charging.
Right. And so the end result of that is I have what we call a recipe that shows me what goes into each individual product, and then what the cost price is, and then what we want to have a suggested markup, and it gives us a range. And then we can look at that range and set the price. So that's been, I think, one of a game changer since you started, because it was interesting to see where I was sort of flying by the seat of my pants before setting prices. I could see where I was way off, either way too high or way too low.
Yeah.
We've made a lot of adjustments on pricing based on that. But it is kind of interesting that nobody has come up with, I think Crafty Base is the only one that has something like that, but we tried that, and it wasn't doing what we needed it to do. And that's when we came up with Airtable. And it's really worked out well.
This sounds like a godsend for handmade sellers, because exactly what you've described is, because you're right, Colette. I think a lot of people will guess at, the cost of goods and, materials, and then add a number on top of that. But how often do we forget overhead, like you said, Ceanne, and the time spent? A lot of sellers don't add labor, the cost of labor. So this is the first I'm hearing of Airtable, and I'm kind of excited that folks are going to hear about this too, because it's so much better than like this regular spreadsheet. There's one Etsy shared with sellers a long time ago, and it was very basic, but this sounds great.
Maybe we should quit selling wreaths and we could start a database business for well, and I will have to say, I've been in retail a long, long time, and it really is something what we came up with. It would be a very useful tool for a lot of people out there. So, yeah. And I credit Ceanne for setting all that up. She's really the mastermind behind all that.
The person who you got to help you set it up initially, was that an Airtable representative?
They have like Airtable experts, and we weren't really sure what we were doing, so we kind of had him start it. And then at one point I was like, I don't need him. I can finish coding this myself. And just kind of figured out what we were doing.
Where did we find him on Fiverr, or
maybe it was Fiverr? I don't know. I think they have like Airtable experts.
I don't know. Like, I think we paid him $80, and what he did was
it was a start.
Yeah. But Ceanne really got it going from there. He helped us just with the original like setup of it. But it's really it's actually really awesome the way we have it set up, because it really is awesome.
Okay. I mean, it sounds fantastic. And and the fact that you found somebody on Fiverr to help you get going, and then you took it and ran, even more, I tell you.
Well, if people haven't used Fiverr, I've used that a lot. There's a lot of good people on Fiverr.
There are, me too. And every time it comes up, I always have to remember to say the intro music for this podcast from day one, I found somebody on Fiverr who did it for me.
I was wondering, I was just listening to your podcast today, and did you get the guy that speaks the intro from Fiverr? Yeah. Yeah, I was like, I wonder where she got this guy.
Fiverr.
Really?
Yes, really.
Okay. All right, we gave them a good plug.
We did. I mean, there's so much you can do on there, and so many, like you said, so many talented people who know what they're doing, and they do it well. And I'm glad that now they can charge a bit more. Well, a lot more than just $5, but that $5 is a good entry point to finding some good help.
I agree.
Okay. I will link to these resources for anyone who wants to check them out, and see if they work for them. Also, do you, Colette or Ceanne, have an Etsy shop shout out? And this could be a shop that you really like, or a seller that has helped you out. Anything.
I don't really have any particular shops that have helped me out, but there's one shop that I'm obsessed with that I've bought lots of things from, and I would love to give her a shout out. It's called For Pete's Sake Pottery, and she does the cutest ceramic items you've ever seen. I've gotten a ceramic buffalo check ceramic pumpkin. I just ordered some peeps. I got a beautiful checked platter. She has really, really neat stuff. I think her Etsy shop right now is currently on vacation because I stalk her. She also has a standalone website for Pete'sSakePottery.com, and if you haven't seen her items and you're into all the cutesy ceramic stuff, you need to go check her out.
I actually, when I was shopping for, what was it,
Christmas,
For
maybe?
Christmas. So mom and I obviously share the Etsy account. So I go through all of her favorites and I go through pages and pages of favorites. And then I see she had favorited some little ceramic platter that matched something else in her living room. And I'm like, oh, this must be where she got that little pumpkin sitting in the living room. So I went ahead and I bought it for her. And she,
Oh,
yeah, benefits of sharing an Etsy account with your mom.
yes. Just fill it with things that you want, and then
Yeah, that's true. Comes in handy.
what's the best way people can connect with you outside of the podcast if they want to reach out and connect?
So our Etsy shop, you can go to everbloomingoriginal.etsy.com. There is no S on Everblooming Original because there was not space. Or our Instagram is Everblooming Originals, and our standalone website is everbloomingoriginals.com.
Okay.
And there's contact us buttons on the website, the standalone website, and of course through Etsy Convo. And I'm happy to, I've helped many sellers in the past. If anybody has any specific questions, please feel free to drop us a convo or contact us through our website.
Thank you both. I will have links to your Etsy shop, your website, and where they can find you on social media as well, and Instagram at Everblooming Originals. Ceanne, Colette, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we had this conversation. You had me smiling the whole time, and thank you so much for sharing and being my guest.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. I listen to a podcast every day on the way to work, so I feel like I'm talking with a celebrity right now.
No. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I will be back next week. I smiled all the way through this conversation with Ceanne and Colette. And that's because I really do enjoy having these conversations with Etsy sellers. So if you would like to be my guest on the podcast, please go to convome.com and click on the Be My Guest tab. And all the information is there about how to be my guest on the podcast. And I look forward to hearing from you and having you as my guest. And if you'd like to connect with me off of the podcast, you can connect with me on Instagram at convo me podcast. Again, that's at convo me podcast on Instagram.